me, there's plenty of subject matter right there.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up.
A creed at the core of every American whose story is not yet written. Yes, we can.
Regulators. We regulate any stealing of his property. We're damn good, too. But you can't be any geek off the street. Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Regulators! Mount up.
Good evening. Welcome to United Spectrum. I'm Brian. I'll be your host this evening.
And I'm Justin. I'll be your host as well.
We're here on show number 6. Justin, how you feel?
Man, I feel good. We skipped a week after Thanksgiving. I just ate too much. Been dealing with a cold. And unlike you, I didn't want to brave it with the nasal congestion, trying to record. But, man, I had a good time. Great having family. We talked about that, in show 5, the importance of having your family around your kids, and a lot of things going on, a lot of good in both our lives right now. So I've got no complaints, man. But more importantly, how about yourself?
I'm doing good. I did enjoy the holiday season for Thanksgiving. I love this time of year when it comes to family getting together and, just enjoying each other and actually spending quality time, and the people that you love that you don't get to see every day because life is so consuming. You get to spend some time and catch up and really express your emotions. So to me, it's all about, getting with family and just appreciating the things that we take for granted every day, because everyone doesn't necessarily have a big enough family to where they have the love. So taking some time at this time of the year to embrace that love is always a good thing for me.
Well, it's funny in a way that, the things that we talk about in the show, the things that we hit on, and, each and every week we're trying to bring to light maybe some different conversations that need to have in today's world, and into 2017 going into 2018, we need to have these tough conversations. Some of them are though meant to be more grounded and not as controversial, but more just needed conversations that people don't always have. And I feel like for the last 5-6 shows now, we've been able to hit on that each and every week of, let's put our swords down for a second and let's all have a positive conversation. And we're not trying to get everybody to think like us, but we're trying to get them to think, and that's the biggest thing. And for me, what I've gotten out of the show is each and every week it's like therapy in a sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Not that I feel like I need it, but it's like then we do this and I realize I'm trying to practice what we're preaching, and I think that's a big part of that, talking about family. And, I think we hit on friendship in our last show, and it's funny, I've been more cognizant of that moving forward. So there's things that you can take out of each and every show, and I hope everyone does.
I feel better when I get to express some of the things that's going on inside of my brain and share it with other people, and maybe it's something that's going inside of their brain that they don't know how to release. So, the whole goal is to jog, get that thinking cap working, and I don't know, just have a release, man. We don't have a release anywhere. I think this is great therapy for anybody. If you can talk to somebody, and even if they don't agree with you, to be able to accept your truth and try to decipher it, and just to lend you an ear. And I think that's the biggest thing that we wanted to get from this is, like, besides getting people to think, it's also for us to lend an ear to each other, and that's a kind thing to do, is to actually listen to somebody talk. So you want to go ahead and get started this week?
Yeah, man, let's go ahead and get into it. This week we're going to hit on a couple different things. We're going to jump into stereotypes here in just a second. I want to talk about the parole process and the criminal justice system, and then we'll hit on addiction, and we'll turn it over to you for the truth this week. Before we do, real quick, though, for college football season, getting ready to wind down. A lot of people having some fun with that. As now the bowl season's here in college football. The NFL playoffs are getting ready to go, but I just got to ask you, man, as an Alabama fan, Alabama just announced right before we recorded this show that they'd be getting in as the 4th seed in the playoff. What's your quick thoughts on that? We'll try and keep this under 2 minutes.
3 weeks ago, I called it out. I said that, there was a lot of pressure. We had been 1 all year. Everyone said we had a bad schedule. But, as it did unfold, that everyone pretty much had a bad schedule. This is 5 years out that we make these schedules. Everyone plays a crap team. The SEC West, Alabama played 4 ranked teams. The only school that played more ranked teams than us was Clemson. And you could say at the time, at the end of the year, those people aren't ranked anymore. You're right, especially in the SEC West, because we all play each other. So if someone's ranked in the SEC West and somebody's dominating, the SEC West knocks everybody out. I said it 3 weeks ago that if we lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, that we would make it into the playoffs. And it did unfold that Alabama is number 4. I still say, like I said 3 weeks ago, Cinderella story. For us to play Clemson, who beat us last year out of the championship, for us to beat them in the first roll of the playoffs, and Georgia beat Oklahoma, and Nick Saban and Kirby Smart go together for a national championship. I'll say here on the 6th show that if Alabama and Georgia plays each other for a championship, then in 2 years from now you'll have 8 teams in the playoffs, and I'll just leave it at that.
It's quite the possibility it could happen that way. I feel like the rest of the world is kind of maybe a little bit mad. They keep saying the SEC takes a step down, and maybe as a conference it's not as deep as it used to be, but when you look at the juggernauts at the top, I think that's certainly the case with Alabama and Auburn the last couple of years. Georgia's now in that mix as well. The rest of the East kind of weak right now, but I think you could see a bounce back, certainly with Dan Mullen going to Florida. That could be big for the conference. Tennessee's a joke. That'll be another show another time. Look, man, I'm not an Alabama guy. I don't like Alabama, really. I don't have a dog in their fight. I have a hell of a lot of respect for Alabama. I don't want anyone to be confused with me saying that I don't like them and not respecting them. I do. I think that they are the best team in college football year in and year out.
Give or take a couple things.
Yeah, and I think they got beat by a really good Clemson team last year. I think if you ask me this year that who's number 1, I think Clemson right now. But look, man, I'm going to say this. As far as all those Ohio State fans that were mad they didn't get in, at the end of the day, Alabama had 1 loss, and that was to Auburn team on the road. They lost by 12 points. Oklahoma can't say that about their loss to Iowa State.
No one can.
Ohio State can't say that about their loss to Iowa. They lost by 31. So at the same time, if you're calling a team number 1 all year, then it's kind of hard to say they're not one of the top 4 because they have 1 loss when other teams have multiple. So
thank you, Ohio State. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for keeping it entertaining.
Thank you, Ohio State.
But yeah, man. So that's our college football talk. I'm with you. Look, at the end of the day, I always said that Alabama's kind of like the New York Yankees of college football, and that's being that when you win too damn much, people start to get sick of you. But that's a good problem to have if you're an Alabama fan. It's okay to be hated as long as people are humble.
Roll Tide.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, let's get into it.
Go ahead and switch these gears for us, Jay.
Yeah, let's get serious here for a second. One of the things that I really wanted to hop into this week, among other things, was stereotypes. Now, this one not to be as serious. Want to have a little bit of fun with it, but man, stereotypes are when you get into race and religion, are just something that is pretty prevalent. And sometimes, like if you're hanging out with people of your same size, shape, and color, you can laugh about your own stereotypes. But there's a time and a place, and I don't think it would be appropriate for me to walk into a temple or synagogue and, start making, Jew jokes, as they call them. But, and I got into this because I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine, actually a broadcaster for the New Orleans Pelicans broadcast network in the NBA. And he was my old roommate, and he's Jewish, and he and I were just having a great time reminiscing on our time at Georgia Southern back in college, 9 years ago now. And one of the times he had said is, he said, man, you were always a great beer pong partner. We always won so much games of beer pong together. And I said, yeah, man, that was a good time. And he's like, there was that one time, though, when, we used to do distractions. And I was like, what are you talking about? So he reminded me that when we played beer pong, there were distractions. Like the girls would, hike up their dresses or whatever, or show some cleavage, try to get the guys to miss their, draining their cup with the ball. And with Daniel one night, he and I started to get a little bit, leaning one way or another. And so him being Jewish, I started pulling out some Jewish jokes to throw him off. And so I went with Hebrew National hot dogs and told him dinner was on the table. And then another time I just took a cup of change and I threw the change around the room and I was like, hey, man, I'm going to make my shot. Why don't you pick it up? You want to. And so it was little things like that where he and I can laugh in that situation because we were friends, but I wouldn't do that to just any Jewish guy.
Yeah,
in the same sense that, you can make fun of me saying white guys can't dance. Some of these stereotypes are true, but you wouldn't want to tell me that, if I was, let's say, a hope you can dance champion or something. So I don't know. What do you think of when you think stereotypes? Is it a negative connotation most of the time? Is it a friendly thing? I mean, what do you make of it?
I think we all do it unconsciously and we don't even know it. I think it's so much part of our everyday life that if you don't think that you have stereotypes, you're really not paying attention to what you're doing. I think it could be hurtful. I think there's a time and a place for everything, and there's good stereotypes and there's bad stereotypes. There's racial stereotypes. There's stereotypes against men. There's stereotypes against women. So I mean, you cover a lot of bases with it. There's a time and a place, and like you said, you can't share your stereotype with everybody.
I think it goes back to one of our first conversations because you had mentioned, what happens if, a white guy's walking down the street with his dog and, there's a black guy coming the same direction. At some point, like, what side of the street are they on? Do they switch up streets? It's like, what is that negative connotation? I think same thing with religion. And you look at the Muslim religion, and especially after 9/11, a lot of people saw all Muslims as evil people, as terrorists. And it's the furthest thing from the truth, like the terrorists are a very small percentage, and certainly not that. I think it's funny, living in the South, if I went up north and ordered a sweet tea, everybody thought I was a dumb redneck. I mean, it's just funny how it plays out that way. Or, when I went from Atlanta to Mobile and the way that I talked, that people thought that I was
from the north, didn't they?
Yeah, they thought I was from the north.
Yeah, you don't sound like a Southern boy, though, Jay.
Look, I've always said this, man. My family's from the north, but I was raised in the South, so I'm like the true melting pot of dialects.
I guess so.
But,
I guess that could be the case. I guess does the dialect really matter if you have the knowledge, though?
Hopefully not. I think if you can speak properly.
It's a stereotype. All black men can play basketball and can dance and like watermelon and fried chicken and 40s of OE. I liked almost everything except for the watermelon.
I was going to say, what's funny, though, is you ask someone else, and it's like, damn, I like all these. The old, you talking about Old English 1800?
Yeah. Not 1800.
What was
800.
800.
Yeah, 800. Say it with me. 800.
800.
OE 800.
That, I think your wife got me that one time, and it tasted like milk going down. It was so
it's
thick,
malt
dude.
liquor.
It was so thick.
It tell your stomach
good.
up. But
oh my god.
Yeah, that's like black dudes like malt liquor. 40s of slits.
Yeah.
Mickey's out the big mouth. The green bottle. You know what I'm talking about?
Nah, not that one.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't been that part.
Yeah, but the a lot of stereotypes are funny. I guess it depends on how thin your skin. Yeah, how thick your skin is. Yeah, how thick is your
Hopefully
skin?
It ain't thin. I mean, it could be thin.
I mean, people got some thin skin, man. You get under people's skin quick. You scratch the surface.
How do you? I mean, but at the end of the day, like there's a lot of negative stereotypes out there, right? Like, I heard a lot of people. It's like, if you ask white people think that black people cause crime. Like they ignore white crime. I'm not. Is
that a stereotype or is that racist?
It's common. I think they go hand in hand.
So what is that called? Just one after the other, right?
Stereoism.
Yeah, I guess so.
But then you go back on the other side of the coin, and it's like I think you get even more into the idea, especially what we're dealing with now in today's America. We've talked about this in our show before, but it's like when you get pulled over as a black man, like you talked about the fear for your kids and fear for yourself of what it's going to be like with a cop. And I think there's people out there that think all cops are bad, and it's like not that case.
Well, that's just like black people thinking all white people are bad. That's a stereotype. That every white person is racist.
It goes back, and it goes back to that. It's these stereotypes. I think it kind of creates this racist culture, right?
Yeah. It's just a word that creates the culture, though. You just think about it. If you have no acknowledge to those words, then it has no meaning. So if you don't acknowledge that he's a racist, is he really a racist? Like, if you let somebody get under your skin, then you see what they are. Right. But if you don't pay attention to that word, which is just a word, then it can't penetrate your brain. I'm not thinking about you being racist because I could really give a damn what you are. But when I put a word to associate with you, that's what you are. So when you see somebody and you're like, he's a racist because he said some hurtful words, you really let those words affect you as a person?
Right.
So, stereotypes, like I said, there's a time and a place. And I look at some black dudes and I have some choice thoughts as well when I look at them. I mean, it's a stereotype. He's black. I still have a thought that I think about what he might be capable of. When I look at a white man, I have a stereotype of what I think about him. Like, he's going to wear some shorts above his knees.
So it's funny you get into that because I work in Midtown at the radio station is one of my other jobs. And there's Starbucks in Midtown that I go to that's connected to our building. I go in there, and if there's another dude in there, like I'm very selective about what I order. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize I was doing this, but part of that is I'm not trying to send out the mixed signal, but the stereotype is that because Midtown is so friendly to the gay and lesbian community, which I it's not a bad thing, but I automatically assume that like because my barista is openly gay, has had conversations about it. Yeah.
What do you mean about it's openly gay? So a drink that you can have makes you openly gay?
No. When I think about what I have, like let's say there's 2 other dudes in there with me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna order a pumpkin spice latte.
Well, you putting that type of pressure on yourself.
Right. Like I'm ordering a black coffee with.
So that's a hell of a stereotype. You're putting that pressure on yourself. Like if we go somewhere and I see a good sangria on the menu, I'm gonna have a sangria.
Exactly. And that I go back to why am I assuming that these 2 guys are gay?
So why do you think that?
When you and I could go to the Starbucks.
Why do you think that? Just because of that neighborhood that you're in?
I think that's what it is. But that's where I go back to the stereotype.
You need to get over that. I'm gonna tell you because I might drink some Buchanan, which is Scotch and whiskey together with a little Red Bull. Or, if I want a mango Mai Tai, because that's just the feeling I have, that's what I'm going to have. And I don't give a damn what you think. You're not drinking it.
Look, 2 things I'm going to say about that. One, I love the pumpkin spice latte. It's just delicious. Even my wife makes fun of me for it. And number 2, look, man, I haven't had a mudslide in a while, but I got no problem ordering one. Okay?
So why would you have a problem if you're at Starbucks on ordering a pumpkin spice?
It was more the idea.
So now you're aware of it, though. So what you're saying, like now you're aware that something that you want to do.
I acknowledged it the other day. I was like, damn, like, why am I afraid to order a drink that I like because there's other dudes in here that may or may not be gay?
Man, that's... Yeah.
But the stereotype was we're at a Starbucks in Midtown, and if you're a dude at a Starbucks in Midtown, and...
That people are going to look at you like you're gay.
Yeah. But what...
That's a hell of a stereotype.
Well, so I had this conversation with the barista because he talks about being gay. I mean, he's like, just the lifestyle that he chooses, the hair, the way that he dresses, like he's very much a gay man, proud gay man, should be. But he talked about the stereotypes in Midtown and that, for him and his friends, whether they're straight or not, if his guy friends are with him, his straight guy friends, they're automatically assumed gay. And so he kind of sparked this conversation about stereotypes.
Well, that's kind of like when you're in a black club, and if I take, and you'd have been to some black clubs with me where you was like the only white boy.
Yeah.
And the first thing a black dude thinks when he sees a white boy that's like not dressed like the black dudes are is he the police?
Really?
Yeah. Definitely.
They think you got a narc in the building.
Yeah, they're like, he came with the white boy. Is he the police? Is that the police that's with him? You know what I'm saying? Is that one time he brought one time to the club? But that's just like if you're a black dude, and this didn't happen to me a million times, especially in the area that we live. I've been places where I'm in the bar, and because I'm not dressed like everybody else, somebody always thinks I'm the drug dealer. It never fails if somebody comes to ask me, you know where I can get some blow? You know where I can get some weed? Like, it's a stereotype that when you see a black dude, he the plug. Or you see a Spanish cat, like, he the plug. Like, he's serving bricks right now. He's with the cartel.
It's funny, too. You get into the sports realm of it. And I remember, like, in high school, everybody assumed that the black guy was going to be the fastest on the team. And I had a football coach one time that asked me flat out. He said, Taylor was a guy, black wide receiver. I was a white wide receiver. He said, I guess he heard me talking that I felt like I was pretty fast. And I was. I mainly because I had played soccer before football. I had really good lower body strength. And I was telling a buddy that I felt like I was one of the fastest on the team. So what he did during conditioning that day, our head coach, freshman head coach, lined us all up in a line on the sideline and said, all right, guys, we're getting ready to run. Before we do, I got to ask somebody a question. And I was like, oh, hell, who's about to get called out? Baker. And I'm like, oh, God, why is my name coming out of his mouth? He made a mistake. And he said, do you think you're faster than Taylor? Taylor looks down at me. Taylor's a good dude. He looks down at me, and I go, crap, now you just called me out in front of like 62 other dudes. Yeah, I do. And he said, Taylor, you think you're faster than Baker? And he said, hell yeah, I know I am. So he said, good, you guys are going to race. And then I kid you not. He said, all right, well, who here thinks Taylor's going to win? And half the guys raise their hand. Here's the issue that I had with that. Half the dudes that raised their hand, they were not the black dudes on the team. They were the white guys on the team.
Seriously?
So they thought the black dude was going to win.
Automatically. Say he had feet on you.
Then he
put them afterburners on you.
He asked about who thought I was going to win, and one or two of my friends, that were friends of mine on the team raise their hand, and then
It was
like,
they were just
one
being
old
morally
coach,
supportive.
Yeah, and everybody else was just like, I don't, where is this going?
Yeah.
We raced, and I swear to God, we raced. He made us race 3 times. All 3 times, we finished at the same exact time. Like, it could not have been any closer. I think he had an edge on the first one. I got him on the second.
You sure he didn't let up just to keep it even?
I don't know. He may have. It gave me a hell of an ego, though, for about 2 more years until I finally messed up my knee. But it just goes back to that. I remember being on the line, and it was like the white dudes on the team just assumed, having not even known my abilities, just assumed he was going to beat me because he was black. So, I don't know. The whole stereotype thing. They're not all bad, right? Like this.
No, some of them are funny. Some of them are funny. I mean, and a lot of stereotypes that people have that are bad are for their own safety. Or they think
agree.
it's for their safety. You're like, that black dude walking across the street looks really intimidating, and he could probably knock me over and take everything from me. I need to cross the street. That's a safety thing. When a black dude, like, this white dude is racist. You're looking at him like, I can't get close to him because he's a racist. He's going to do something that could deter my future. That's from a safety aspect. When a woman sees a man in the bar and he's like very aggressive or he's dressed a certain way and she's like, he wants to take that from me. Like that's the only thing in his mind is having sex with me. She's trying to protect herself. So think about, if you look at it from a different aspect, the bad stereotypes are usually for people's, in fear of their life or to keep themselves safe. So is it really bad?
No, and I go back to, there's some good ones and some bad ones out there, and the good ones that are funny should be with you boys, but, you have to protect yourself. And, look, the biggest thing about stereotypes is just be cognizant of where you're at and make sure that, if you're talking about stereotypes, keep the stereotypes. Don't cross that line of racism, sexism. I remember growing up, like, I had a buddy of mine that said, we might have been in middle school. We certainly weren't out of high school, but he had said that every girl that wears a thong is DTF, as they say.
What was DTF?
Down to make
Okay,
love.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
okay.
Right, yeah.
Down to Fondo.
Yeah.
Does that sound good? Down to Fondo?
Down to Fondo.
Okay.
To Fornia, yeah, you know what I mean. So, yeah, I don't know, but that's our talk
fraternize.
Yeah, it's
down to
fraternize.
fraternize.
So we hit on stereotypes, and I think, Pete, at the end of the day, I think we both kind of hit on this, but just, be cognizant of what you're talking about. Be thinking about it. I like what you said, though. I think at the end of the day, some of them are about protection.
Yeah, it's about safety. A lot of them, you think about it, it's about safety.
All right, well, let's go ahead and switch gears again. So now we go from stereotypes to something that's pretty big. Not a lot of us think about it because not a lot of us have to go through it, but maybe you know someone that has, or maybe you read a high-profile case. But I wanted to jump into the parole process and the criminal justice system and hit on that. I want you to kind of take the lead on this because you brought up a good point about the fact that, a lot of people think that, I think the common stereotype is that, if you're paroled, it doesn't matter what your crime is, but if you're paroled, that you're basically let out of jail and you go back to your normal life when
it's not normal, though.
Right.
So yeah, it's not normal. So the first, I'm going to tell you some things that maybe we're not aware of, and I had to look this up to find out, but I didn't know that prisoners have no legal rights in parole hearings. And, where's the fairness with that? You don't even have some of the basic rights guaranteed by the Constitution when you go in front of the parole board. It's kind of like they make their own rules. And, no one really knows how to get parole. So you go in front of the parole board, you don't even know what they're looking at or what the standard is to let you know if you're even going to be released from prison or to get parole, so you're there and it's always like a shot in the dark. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, like, if I've been doing this and is this a criteria that they want, and I've been taking these classes and I have a degree and I learned a trade and I'm really rehabilitated. You don't even know if that's going to work for you. You might have had too many tickets for getting caught smoking cigarettes that could stop you from getting parole. So they don't set the standard. And then also, I don't think a lot of people know this, is when someone's up for parole and you get a date to go to parole, if you do get one, parole boards may not actually meet the person up for parole. Sometimes they make decisions without the person even going in front of them to plead their case. They take a look over your file and they make decisions. And the reason of this being is the average state board has about 35 release decisions per workday. You hear that? 35? You're deciding 35 people's lives
in a day.
In a day.
In an 8-hour period.
And the other thing that I didn't know is that you don't have to have anything to do with the judicial system in order to be on a parole board. You can be an executive at a company. Did you know that?
No.
You could be an executive at a company and be on a parole board if you were called to do that. The other thing is that a lot of these men go to prison and they get on a parole, and if you're known as a felon, that your life is destroyed. A lot of guys get through parole that aren't rehabilitated, and they have no skills, and they went in more of a monster than they were before they came out, because there's nothing that's teaching these guys anything when they get in prison. The support system is not really there inside the prison system. It's a place for monsters. You understand how cold you have to be in prison? Do you understand extortion, rape, being bullied, and you're in there on credit card fraud, or you sell pounds of weed and you're in prison with murderers. You know what I mean? And then you've learned some tricks of the trade and you've become more of a monster, and there's no rehabilitation because you got caught with 10 pounds of weed and you're a felon, and now you come out and you can't get a job. I mean, I think the whole system is screwed all the way, and I guess I kind of got off topic, but the parole board is just, I think it needs to be reevaluated, man. Like, there should be a criteria that needs to be met. Maybe a psychological evaluation when you go to prison, one before you go in front of the parole board, that you should have some type of degree that you established before, that you shouldn't have so many citations, blah, 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 blah. Because I think there's a lot of guys in prison that are up for parole and they've done some really good things, but they don't know what the standard is, and they can go in there and mess up their parole day.
You know, and it's such a big topic politically because there's kind of an unfairness to it, right? There's those that have maybe gotten sentences or, you know, had to plead guilty to crimes that weren't as offensive, you know. I think you had mentioned, you know, certainly in the drug world, you know, if you're getting busted for felony drug charges of marijuana versus, you know, committing murder, it's two completely different crimes. And sometimes the punishment for both shouldn't be the same, certainly. But it's such a big controversy among our current, you know, political spectrum in America that 16 states have actually abolished parole entirely.
Really?
In the sense that, you know, they don't feel that it's necessarily fair to have a parole board kind of decide your fate.
Really?
So it has its good and its bad effects, right? Because those that haven't been rehabilitated, they stay behind bars. Mm-hmm. But what about, you know, I thought about those. I mean, not that it's always the case. What about wrong convictions, right?
Yeah, definitely.
What about those that maybe committed a lesser crime and you have to serve your whole time? So for those that are unaware, the way that parole works is it's not like you're getting out scot-free or that you've been, you know, forgiven for your crimes. You're still serving out your sentence. You're just able to do it outside the prison with some very strict set of rules. But
intensive parole, where you report all the time. Sometimes you get released on parole and go to a halfway house. It's part of a program that you go to a halfway house that is a little bit more freedom, but you have a curfew. You have to have a job a certain amount of time. It's almost like being a kid. You're just not locked in a cage. They're watching everything that you're doing. So you still serve a sentence on parole, and actually it's really hard to be successful because you can't get your life really back together. You're worried about being in the wrong place with the wrong people. You have to watch that because you can't be around felons. You can't be around alcohol. I mean, it's a difficult thing, and I think the system is just, I think it's just flawed, man. I mean, I think this is something we can go into deeper maybe on another topic because, I mean.
How do you go in and make it better? I guess is because I think we're all in agreement that there's some issues with it, on both sides of the parole. But you know, what would it take? What's fair? What's right? Mm-hmm. And you know, I go back to what you said in the beginning. It's like they don't have any rights when when they're up for parole. Like you're already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, I would say the first step to make it better is to set a standard of what considers you A+ to get parole. Let's set a standard. This is the line. You're up for parole right now, but you haven't met the line, so we're not even going to meet you. So that means that those 35 that you're doing a day actually slims down because the criteria is set. Right now, they're wasting time. There's a guy that's up for parole and he has a parole date and he hasn't done anything. And you have to take time to either meet him or sit down and go through his file. So if you set the standard and there's a rehabilitation that has to happen before you go in front of the parole board, then you know we've already been working on someone to enter this man back into society and give him a regular life. If you set that standard, like I said, you don't worry about doing 35 reviews a day. Maybe that goes down to 20 and you save time and we save tax money, and we're putting better people into our society, because some people go in there with a good game. You think if you're sitting in prison and you know parole's coming up in 6 months, only thing you're doing is getting your mind together because you have nothing but time. And that's how some of these monsters are getting back out, and they're getting on parole because they speak well. Their performance is great. They're in touch. They know how to use the proper words. You know, the strength is there for them to con someone. Now, someone on the other hand is not an intellect, that's actually a good person, that's not trying to con you and might not have all the right answers, and he says the wrong thing because there's no criteria set, goes back to prison, when this is the type of person we needed to interject back into society.
You know, I think that there's certainly some flaws, and it goes back to that. But I think about those that maybe get away with maybe not being rehabilitated, and there's not a whole lot of high-profile parole cases that we can revert back to. There is one in more recent memory, and that's that of O.J. Simpson. And a lot of people were trying to, I guess, look at how O.J.'s parole hearing went, because they still tie him to, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent to the whole, you know, incident with where he killed his wife. You know, did he take out Nicole, that kind of thing. And so he was actually in prison for something completely unrelated. He stole back his own stuff. But there was this arrogance to O.J. that basically, when he was talking to the parole board, said, you know, hey, look, I'm in here, I've done my time, but, you know, like, why should I go? Well, because I'm a good guy, but, you know, what I did wasn't necessarily wrong, you know, like, it was my stuff, I stole my stuff.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people that kind of questioned how the parole board would go, because there was still this arrogance that he wasn't necessarily...
He didn't necessarily learn a lesson.
Right. He wasn't sorry for what he did.
He wasn't humbled.
Yeah, he was sorry for how it shook out.
Or how he got caught. Yeah, he was sorry he got caught.
Yeah, he was, exactly. And I think that's the issue when you get into parole. But it's just something to look into. You know, I think it's always a political topic, political hot topic of, you know, how do you move forward with parole, and good, bad, and ugly. Maybe you know some that have gone through it. I can contest that it's not a forgiveness by any means. It's certainly a constant goal to work and stay in the good graces. So we'll get into that. But again, that's our hit on parole in the criminal justice system, and always more on that later. We like to always start kind of tie in some
things later on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But
well, Jay, go ahead and switch gears on us again. What you got for us?
Yeah. Let's switch up again one more time, B, before we get into the truth. And what I want to hit on is addiction, different types of addiction. We can talk about physical dependence. We can talk about emotional addiction. We can talk about all kinds of addiction. But addiction is a very, very big problem right now in our country. There's so many different types. I think we're all, in a way, we have dealt with some sort of addiction, whether personally, directly, or indirectly with others. But you know, it's such a wide topic, B, that we're gonna do our best in the next 5 minutes to kind of rein it in on one subject. But what's your first take on addiction? What do you think of when you hear that word?
So you have to ask yourself, why do people have addiction? And excuse me, I decided to look that up. And in a person who becomes addicted, brain receptors become overwhelmed. People who develop an addiction typically find that in time, the desired substance no longer gives them as much pleasure. They have to take more of it to obtain the same dopamine high, because their brains have adapted an effect known as tolerance. What I get from it, Jay, in a nutshell, man, is that, you know, you get something one time, and it's very appealing to you, and it releases dopamine, you know. It's just like smoking, you know, or having sex, or, you know, maybe watching football or driving a car at a fast speed. It feels good, but everything that feels good to us, I mean, we yearn for more of that, but we never experience that same feeling again. So you become addicted because you're chasing that same intensity, like that felt good, you know, and we trick ourselves so much that we don't believe it's possible to not feel like that again, so we continue. You understand what I'm saying? When I say you really believe that it's not possible to feel like that, but you want to prove yourself wrong, so you continue to say, I can feel that way again. You know, it's like that first kiss. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
a girlfriend in high
excited
school, you know what I
butterflies,
mean?
yeah.
That first kiss, and you're like, man, that was great. You know, I want to know what that feels like again. So you continue to do it. And I think, like you say, addiction is not just an alcohol thing or drugs. You know, you like people with OCD, they have addictions. You know, it's because you're looking for something to be fulfilled. And that's what I take from it, is that I think it becomes almost a weakness in the mind, because you don't understand that you're really not going to get what you're looking for again by doing the same thing. So in the end, I think addiction makes you crazy, because think about it. What being insane is doing the same thing over and over, the same way, looking for a different outcome. So if you're addicted to something and you're still trying to chase that same feeling that you had the first time you did something, it makes you go crazy.
You know, it's funny because you hit on something that I agree with. I think it's both mental and physical. There's a physical dependence and addiction, but kind of a chemical imbalance in the brain, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that it also goes back to a mental addiction, and the mental side of that is, like you said, looking for that same high, whether that be from drugs or alcohol or sex or
any way you can release
gaming.
that dopamine.
Yeah, anything that gives you that same effect. So the hard part is trying to, I think, acknowledge an addiction. You know, I think some of the biggest things that we deal with right now in our society in addiction are, you know, the smoking addiction that many have in that aspect, and then you have from smoking to drinking to sex to gaming. Sex is a big one.
Sex.
But you know the
Sex.
one that I don't understand is
Sex.
Is the gaming one.
Sex. I don't understand that one either.
You understand the sex one?
No.
Explain.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful, man. It's like, for those seconds, it's like heaven.
And then what about those 5 seconds right after?
Man, for a man or for a woman?
Let's go for a man. Let's speak from a man's perspective, because it's
a
really
sensitive topic. Physically and mentally, it's a sensitive thing. But I didn't want to cut you off. But sex, I mean, that's an addiction.
It's a huge one. It's an addiction in itself. And look, you know what's funny is I remember, you know, growing up, you know, from college into now, you know, going from a young man to the adult that I would be today, considered for some, maybe not for others. But you know, I always remember. It's funny. I think even today I saw an Instagram post that was like, you know, I never regret my night until I hit send. And it obviously it was a text, I guess, message they were referring to. But for me, I'd always ask myself when it came to sex, like, did I really want to have sex with this person?
Yeah.
And what I would do is, you know, I would go relieve myself.
Whoa.
And if I still had the desire to have sex with them, then I knew I wanted to have sex with them. If I didn't, then I knew
Seriously?
yeah. If I knew I didn't, I would just I would hit him up.
Really?
And it would save me a lot of time and anguish.
I've never heard anything like that before.
It was recommended to me by a friend who said, "Hey, you really want to go? You want to go hit the bumps tonight? You want to drive across town just to get, you know, a couple minutes of booty?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Nah. Why don't you go like handle that yourself and tell me if you still feel the same way?"
I think that's cheating yourself. I wouldn't even waste. I can't even see myself, excuse my language, but wasting a good nut like that. No, I'm dead serious.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think that's why, I don't know. Like, for me, like.
But you said then you would determine if it was important enough to go get a piece of that?
Yeah. And
man, so you're not addicted to sex. You're just addicted to coming.
There were times when I would still drive across town to go get the sex.
Because you're like, yeah, I do really want this.
Yeah, I do really want it.
But are you really,
and then there were
are you
times,
really addicted to the whole action of sex, or are you addicted to the act of just climaxing?
I think the orgasm.
Really?
You know, male or female.
I think see, and you probably suck as a lover then.
Maybe. I don't know why. Why is that the case?
Because it's all about you. It's
not
about having sex.
It's not.
No. You just said.
No.
You said that you think you're more addicted to the climax.
I'm a very selfless lover. And
maybe you should ask your wife that.
No, my wife would contest that.
You sure?
It's always about her first. It ain't about me.
Really?
You know, it ain't about me until she's ready to tap out.
That sounds good. Until she's ready to tap out. There's not a such thing.
Oh, she's ready to tap out.
There's not a such thing as a woman tapping out.
She's ready to tap out.
There's not a such thing as a woman tapping out. She
telling
might be bored and not into it anymore, so she just wants to stop. But you can never out have sex with a woman. Are you crazy?
I mean, I think with her being pregnant is kind of where that came from.
If she wanted to take it, she could take it.
She says she can't.
Because you're that You're all about yourself.
Maybe, I don't know. But getting back to my point.
Yeah, we'll go to the gaming. We'll save the sex for another story.
It's funny because I go with, just going with that. There were times that I drove across town to get it, and there were other times where I was like, hey, I can make my sandwich now. So,
really?
Yeah, I don't know.
See, I just like having sex. The act of sex is just like very enticing to me.
But that's why I guess I never got the addiction. I always thought maybe I was, but then if I could go without the act of having sex, then clearly it can't be an addiction. It's a different.
The climax is your addiction. You just want to be able to ejaculate. Let's just use the proper words because I could say some other things, but you just.
That's a different show.
Go ahead and go to the gaming, man. We're gonna go to the gaming.
Yeah, the gaming.
I feel like we was on W balls for a second. Go ahead.
No, but I think you and I can both relate in some way. I think a lot of people can to the idea of being addicted to sex, the idea of being addicted to getting high off of a drug or an alcohol, but. The one that I don't understand is the gaming addiction.
It's a release from the real world. What do you mean?
That's what we get into.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with reality when you're gaming. When you're playing Mortal Kombat and you're mad at the dude at work and you're playing Black Ops and you really wish that you could go in there and dump him out, maybe it's a good thing that you got a game where you can go home and like dump out the computer and let your aggression. I think it's another way to let out aggression. I can understand it.
I go back to the idea of, a constant desire by humans today for acceptance.
Yeah.
The competitive desire.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you think about gaming, it's competition, right?
Give you another sport.
Yeah, it's another type of sport, and I think that's where the addiction comes from. I mean, I think there are a lot of people out there that are addicted to winning, and when you look at sports in general, like there's people like whether it be us, playing pickup games in the street or in professional football league. Those that are addicted to winning
do anything to get it.
They do anything to get it, and when they don't,
a drug.
it ruins. Like it's like a withdrawal for them.
It's depressing.
Right?
Yeah, it's depressing.
It's funny. My wife asked me. It's like today I needed to do some stuff in the yard and whatnot, and I said, "Yeah, I'll get it after I watch the Falcons game." It's just a stupid football game. She says that to me. I ignore her. I watch the game. Falcons lose. I go outside. Her attitude's changed. Why's your attitude changed? She goes, because I know you're mad right now. So I go back to that, and she understands that it's not just a game.
Yeah, it's not just a game. When it's doing something for you, it's like a woman watching a soap opera or watching a love story for love that she can't have. For a lot of guys, they get to watch football and they used to play football, and you look at it and you're like, damn,
I could still.
That looks like that's great.
Yeah.
Like I remember I did that one time.
I hit that crackback just like he did.
Yeah, you're like, I know that formation right there. He made the wrong cut. You know what I mean? Like, you really start. I mean, it really means something to you, so you become addicted to it.
And then it's that emotional tie that we go back to, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That chemical thing. So for her, she's like, I don't understand. It's just a stupid game. But I walk outside to do the yard work. She's seen the final score. She can tell by my body language. Clearly bothered me.
That your Falcons blew it?
Yeah, that they landed the shit out of it, is like I like to say. But yeah, man. So I think addiction could be another topic for another day. Certainly want to hit on that a lot. But be cognizant of the addictions that you have. I think there's good addictions and bad addictions. I think if you're addicted to a healthy lifestyle, it's one of those things like that's a good thing. I wish I was addicted to that. I try, but I'm not addicted to it. So it's forcing something that's not there.
Yeah.
If you're addicted to drugs or alcohol, clearly you need to maybe look at how you can
get
help
you some help.
Yeah.
See if you can find another vice that's maybe a little bit more healthy for you. Something that's not going to necessarily destroy your life. And it's hard to, a drug addiction, man, is just, when you get a monkey on your back, though, man, I'm going to tell you, I guess it doesn't matter what monkey, gambling, gaming, sex, drugs. A monkey is a monkey, and to get it off your back is a hell of a thing. But they say a lot of times with addiction, wherever you were addicted with something at, when you're rehabilitating yourself, you need to get out of that situation. Right. So if there's a house that you lived in and you were a heroin addict and you did a lot of heroin in that house and you're rehabilitating yourself, you probably need to move out of that house and cut all those attachments. We know that you need to do that with people, but I don't think we realize that you need to do it with things as well, with the materials. But that's, I've heard that before, is that, with that addiction, you need to get away from where you had that addiction at.
Right.
That's a hard thing. A lot of people can't reset like that. If you have a drug problem, alcohol problem, and there's a house that you live in that you've been living in for 20 years and it's paid off and you can afford it, but you've had a lot of drunken, depressed, just over the top alcoholic, events in this place, how do you go back to that and nothing sparks that memory to where it brings you back to that same place and then you relapse?
Well, I don't want to make light of any situation for sure, but right now I'm addicted to coughing, so I'm going to turn it over to you. We'll get more into addiction another time, but let's hit up on the truth. What do you got?
So I'm going to have questions that I don't want you to have an answer for right now necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah. And, at the same time, you're going to actually have to think about something.
Hit me.
So what I want to talk about is called the fifth element. And I done a little research on this, and it's very, there's some examples and there's a test. It's like something for you to try out, okay?
All right, yeah. Bruce Willis got you.
All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to say to yourself, not out loud, you can have your eyes open, do however you want to. On the count of 3, I'm going to say rock star, and on the count of 3, I want you to say rock star inside of your head. And then don't say anything else. Just say it inside of your head, okay? So,
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Okay, a lot of people end up saying it out loud and you're not supposed to, but yeah, I wanted you to say that inside of your head. So, I want you to ask yourself, what voice was that? Yeah. What voice was that you said rock star to yourself? Who was that spoke? Who said that without you opening your mouth? And you heard it. And like I said, I don't necessarily want you to give me an answer right now, but I want your brain to think, and that's why I'm going as slow as I am.
I regret that it wasn't Morgan Freeman. I wish he would narrate my life, but, go ahead.
So who spoke that, okay? And then you said that without opening your mouth, and you heard it with no vibrations of sound. No vibrations of sound has happened at all, and you heard yourself say rock star. So, it gives you a different perspective, first of all, of what is sound and what is memory. And see, your memory is not in the brain. Your memory is in your soul. Okay. So your ears never hear anything because your mouth has never moved, but you heard it yourself. So I'm going to say that again. Your ears never heard anything because your mouth never moved. It was never open, but you still heard that. I mean, you look at something and you close your eyes and you still see it. But what eyes are you seeing that with? What sight? What is sight? What type of sight is there that you can see the future, but your 2 eyes are closed and you can see your past? Just think about that. What sight are you using? What is sight really? I mean, you can actually see your past. Like, you close your eyes and see things that happened when you were a kid. And do you ever question yourself, like, what is that? What is a sight that can see beyond time? I don't think we're really in touch with ourselves, see, because you're not the flesh. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're energy and you're consciousness. You're the being of the flesh. And if this is something that you would agree with, like, this is proven. This is a proven thing. Like, it's not about religion. It's not about race. It's not about politics. These are real things that we're talking about that are within us. Okay? So what happens when you die? Because if you think about it, this is the flesh, it's the outer soul. Without opening your mouth, without hearing, without seeing, you can hear, see, and talk without opening your mind, opening your mouth, opening your eyes, or using your ears. So when you die, are your senses, all those things, is your being still existing? Because this is another dimension that we don't understand, that is death really death? Or is your body your limitations of you? And there's so much energy inside of you, Justin. Like, when people die, you're like, he died. But is it possible that, like, all of that energy, all that stuff that you have going on is taken over your body and it needs to be released? Because it's a proven thing. You can't tell me that I can tell you to say a word and you can't say it inside of your head and not hear it. So at the end of the day, is that not proof that we're existing without this body? And what I think that we have to understand, we were talking about addiction and the mind being weak. Well, what you have to understand is you have to train your mind inside of your mind. Your being has to train itself. See, you keep trying to train this outer part of yourself, okay? And you don't understand that you're making every problem that's a problem to you, you're making that a problem. So you need to talk to yourself more. I think that we need to really be in touch with who we are more. See, you're only responsible at the end of the day for your happiness. You're only responsible for you feeling love through yourself. You're only responsible for loving yourself. Okay? So affirm to yourself more. You understand what I'm saying? Go within and tell yourself, I am the best Justin there is in the whole world. And you're telling us, you're not even opening your mouth and saying that, and it resonates more with you from the inside out, not from the outside in. You know what I mean? You have to tell yourself that you have all your needs coming with speed. Everything that you need is coming in the time of speed. Okay? You have to believe that I'm a being of love and knowledge. You have to have confirmation within your being 24/7. So at a nutshell, I want people to start thinking about that fifth dimension and the power that you have inside to believe in you and to manifest things that you really believe in your heart that is the truth. Because my truth is my truth. It's not yours. I heard a guy say, we have different visuals. We have different ways that we look at things. If I come into a room and I'm an electrician, when I come into the room, I'm looking at the outlets, I'm looking at the lights, I'm looking at blah, blah, blah. If you come in and you're a plumber and you see pipes are protruding and you see this is happening and this is happening, then you see something different. Then if you come in someone that, an interior designer, and they come in and they see that the walls are bare here and they see blah, blah. It's the same room and all three of those people saw different things. Do you understand how complex your mind is and how strong you really are? So, with me, I know I just hit the bases. You didn't know what I was going to talk about with this truth thing about the fifth dimension. And this is another dimension I just want people to actually take a look into. And I think this helps us with depression. It helps us with addiction. It helps us with lies. It helps us with the truth. It helps us with being ourselves. It helps us with being better people to ourselves. It gives us a better understanding and it gives us a way to live. But with everything that I touch, is this I know it's very far-fetched, and some people, reality to some is not reality to others. So you have to be a person that thinks that there's more to the reality that you see in order to even accept what I'm saying. So, what do you feel about it?
When I think about this, the mind is such an amazing thing because, you go back to some of our first memories. And for me, I don't know what is an actual memory and what is a story that I've heard someone tell me about myself that I've then created that memory.
Wow.
And that's something I've always thought about. Think about that.
Wow.
I can't remember what I had for lunch last Tuesday, but yet I can remember my 3-year-old birthday party, flashes of it. But am I remembering these flashes from my actual memory?
Or somebody told you about
someone
it?
Told me about it. I'm looking at a picture and
you
I'm
made
creating it in my mind.
Yeah.
And so there's those things, and then you get into the physical being, and that's another thing is, here's another perspective for it. I completely agree. It's, we're able to do these things, that we're able to have these conversations with ourselves. We're able to solve problems without opening our mouths. We're able to, close our eyes and put ourselves on a beach or in the mountains or wherever our happy place is without having to actually be there. And that's based on what's going on in your mind. But then think about this. The people with dementia, people that have physically, their minds have failed them in their physical body, but internally, are they still there?
I think internally they are. I don't think anything can overthrow the soul. I think that your understanding isn't everybody else's understanding. Like I say, energy is so crazy that when you have a certain amount of energy, you can't even speak.
Well, then
when you have an adrenaline rush, can you open your mouth?
Usually not.
But you can think inside of your head, right? Your being is still working. When you're going down and you're like, oh shit, but your mouth don't open, but inside your head you're saying it. I think that people still have their self together, even with dementia, inside of their being.
Well, and then I go back to that same theory.
And I don't want to offend anybody by saying that. But
no, but think about those that know that those others that have dementia, maybe you're going through it yourself. There are stories that you hear from people with dementia where they're factual of things that happen that they never even talked about before. Maybe you forgot, maybe they didn't know. Mm-hmm. They're unlocking parts of their brain that haven't been tapped in years. Mm-hmm. So
is it really a disease?
I don't know.
Or is letting go really what you need to do? Let go of this reality that you see, and people tell you you're sick when you let go of that reality, but in your mind, you're really free because you're worry-free. You can't even, I don't say they're worry-free, but they're making it, it's a touchy subject,
The
man.
reality is different.
Exactly.
And I think that's the biggest thing is what is your reality? And then I'll go back to, I'll finish it on this. I think when you think about, memories and attitude and everything else and what's going on. For me, like what was going on in my head is I heard my own voice. I hear my own voice a lot when I talk. And maybe it's a different way than everyone else hears it, but it's the way I hear it. When I close my eyes and I picture something, it's because I've either been there or I've seen enough pictures to believe what it would be like. If I, close my eyes and think about an apple pie, I smell that apple pie the way that I last smelt it, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, when you go back to what you and I have been preaching in the show from day one about, being true to yourself and opening your hearts up and opening your minds, at the end of the day, it comes back on, your entire attitude. And, you can only be as happy as you allow yourself to be.
Definitely.
And that's what I'll go with that. You can only change things that you want to change based on, your perspective. So getting into that subject a little bit more and thinking about that, what your mind does, you have to be able to open your mind to make change a thing. If there's something going on in your life that's not going right, you have to be the person inside
That's
your
right.
head that's giving yourself the pep talk. Otherwise,
That's right.
all you're doing is seeing other people talk, but you're not listening to what they say.
Exactly, and we'll end this. We'll wrap this up. But again, I always talk about. I try to be as positive as possible. I'm not always happy every day. Life isn't easy for me, but let me tell you that I know that you're not gonna believe if you don't think that I believe. And you might try to coach me on like, I believe in you, and like you don't, but you're trying to give me a pep talk. But if I walk around here believing and you see that I believe in my actions and the way I stand and my posture and my conversation and how confident I am, then you believe it. But don't expect anyone to give you something that you're not even giving yourself. If you're not loving yourself and you wonder why you can't find nobody to love you, it's probably because you don't love yourself. If you don't believe in you, and it shows, people know when you believe in you, then don't expect anybody else to believe in you. If you can't go get it for yourself, don't be upset when no one else won't get it for you. You have to understand that the perception, the way people perceive things, and we can all say that we don't care how people perceive things, but you have to understand that if you didn't care how people perceive things, you wouldn't do the things that you do. Because if I didn't care how people perceive me, I wouldn't shave my hair. I wouldn't dye my beard. You wouldn't try to eat healthy. You wouldn't try to look good. You wouldn't do the things that you did if you didn't really believe, if you didn't care what people believed about you. So everything that we're doing for other people. Even if you don't have a lot of people around or you don't know a lot of people, you would go out here as a madman in the streets if you didn't care what people thought about it, if you didn't care about a consequence. At the end of the day, please believe in yourself. Love you. All the love will come to you if you believe in you. And the reason it'll come to you is because you're not looking for anybody else to validate or solidify the person that you are inside. Be confident with that. Put trust in you. Quit putting trust in other people first. You don't trust yourself, no one else is going to trust you. It's a balance. We have to find a balance. If you want to receive, you have to perceive that you should receive. I didn't write that down. It just kind of came to me. I don't know if you wanted to touch one more thing, Justin, before we wrap it up or what, brother?
Yeah, just, again, as we finish the show, I want to remind everybody the basis of this show and the creation and the idea behind it is you don't have to agree with everything we say. You don't have to agree with one thing we say. But there are a lot of conversations out there that aren't being had, that need to be had to help us as a society. We get into race, I think, is a big one. We get into religion is a big one. Tonight we hit on stereotypes, the good, the bad, sometimes the ugly of those. We talked about parole. There's a lot of people out there that go through their daily life. They don't even think about the parole system. Maybe they should educate themselves, especially coming up in election years, because that's always a big political debate. And we talk about these things, but there's a reason that we're talking about them. It's because they're conversations that maybe aren't being had because we feel like the platform isn't there. So this is our platform. We want you to be able to feel like you can interact with us. You can, whether it be through email, through social media, through a phone call or a text. You certainly can. We're always looking for ideas, but the biggest thing that we're looking to do is not get you to think necessarily how I think or how Brian thinks. Is to get you to think, to create your own opinion, and let's not hide behind the idea of a social norm. Let's break the mold. And let's have conversations and let's create a dialogue to make our lives better in each and every way that we can for equal opportunity for those to move on and make the most out of life.
And for the people that have been joining us, I appreciate you for still listening. To the newcomers, welcome. I hope that we awakened you.
We try not to suck.
Definitely right. We try to get better every week, and I hope that, we brought some light to your eyes. And one thing I want to leave you with, I want to talk about, learning something new and expanding your vocabulary. Understand that with vocabulary, you learn new things. You use words that you never knew. So you learn something new. You're steady building. It's a building block and until it falls apart. So one thing I want to leave you with is, you only see with a collection of words. Understand that you know nothing about life without a collection of words. You see something and you don't know what it is because you don't know the word, then you skip over it. So this week I want you to try it out. You see something that you don't know. If it's a pole and you don't know exactly what type of pole that is, or if it's a tree and you don't know what type of tree it is, start exercising your brain and figure out what tree it is and learn a new word to help use something else in your arsenal.